This podcast is sponsored by
Terraform Development proudly supports the Hopi tribe and nonprofit Hopi entities to provide essential technical support in engineering, architectural, and project management services. Eddie Kalnimtua can relate to the hard work on the Hopi reservation, including the cornfield duties and traditional ceremonies that he was raised on. He values this tradition, so Terraform Development was formed to meet these needs on the Hopi reservation. Contact Terraform Development at TERRA4ORM.com and follow them on Instagram at Terraform Development.
Also sponsored by...
Hi, I'm Kiona, Hopi Relief volunteer and board member. Hopi Relief is a grassroots, Hopi-led nonprofit organization founded to provide relief services, food boxes, and essential supplies to Hopi tribal members throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Our focus is to uplift the Hopi community by empowering our people to create homegrown solutions to challenges we face. We are supported by the generosity of like-minded individuals and organizations who simply want to help. You can get involved by following us on social media, sharing our story, or donating on our website, www.hopirelief.org. We are at Hopi Relief on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
You are now listening to the Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. I'm your host, the 5-star, 5-diamond chef, and with me is not the godfather of Hopi podcasting, Carl.
Well, you did that poll on IG, and it came out to where I didn't even know anything was going on. I don't do Instagram, so thank you everybody out there for giving me the godfather status, and thank you everybody for believing in me. I'd like to accept this award.
So for those that don't know what Carl is talking about, we had a poll on Instagram because Carl insists that he's the godfather, although everybody out there truly knows that it's J-Man. And so we had the listeners that follow us on Instagram kind of give their opinions. And I guess the outcome kind of leaned a little bit towards you. But, the way that I took it was that, a lot of people were goofing around with the poll, not really taking it seriously. So, we went back to like your high school years when the kids would vote somebody nerdy like you to be homecoming king or, that type of stuff as a joke. So I figured that's what
the low end kid
was.
The one that's in special ed, you get the award.
Because we went to high school together.
Yeah, we did.
And I know that you hung out with the kids that the kids from underneath the stairs. And I hung out with the cool crowd, so.
Well, I thought I was cool. I thought I was the bomb in high school.
You thought you were the bomb.
The bomb, the bomb, diggity bomb.
The bomb.
Is that still a word that we can say?
You can say it. I'm not going to say it.
Is that a cool word that we can still say? Like the bomb, diggity dong dong bong?
You're going to ruin my drip, Carl. I got drip.
It's going to slide you some shade, bro. Those are the new terms I learned. And this was on YouTube.
The funniest thing is that the other day, my 6-year-old, he said the word sus.
Sus?
He said that means you're sus.
What's a sus?
It's one of the new terms that the kids say these
really
days. Sus, yeah. But anyway, it's our finale for season 4.
This is the finale. Yep, this is the finale.
Finale for season 4.
Yeah,
and just
season
like to thank everybody.
Thank you.
That has been listening to us, supporting the podcast. That we did go over the 30,000 download mark. Yeah. So a big celebration there, and that only includes the numbers that are measured through the Anchor site. That doesn't include the YouTube website. Yeah. And so, that our numbers are probably a lot higher than there, but, definitely like to thank everybody out there that supported the podcast. Like to give some quick shout outs before we get into the main topic of today, because, you're probably not going to hear from us for at least about 4 weeks or so, about a month while we go kind of recharge and get other things for the podcast, other things for the CJ Podcast brand ready. But definitely like to give a big, huge shout out to our 30-pack contributors, our monthly donors. Big shout out to Alexis Cahey, to Harrison H.B. Billigody, to Michaela Williams, Deidre Leslie, Rachel Reinhart, Noel Koyohoma, Joyce Hamilton, Millard Kawanyama, Gary Lomayesva, and Michelle Holden.
All right. Well, thank you, all of our 30 Pop Pack sponsors. Oh my God, that was kind of hard to say. 30 Pack Puck.
30-pack pot. And that list gets longer and longer. I got winded reading off that list. And, big shout out to you all. Big quest to you all. But also like to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, to our season 4 sponsors. Big shout out to Terraform Development, our boys, Stanford Lake, and also a big shout out to Strong Ones, to the Res Famous Wife. Big shout out to our boy, Justin Villarreal. And a big shout out to Eddie Calneptu.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for all the sponsorships throughout season 4. We appreciate that. Without you guys, CJ Podcast would not exist. Probably exist in Solo's basement or something. Like
We'd probably be recording the podcast off a tape recorder.
Solo's old tape recorder.
Solo's old tape recorder.
Reel to reel. You have to load it up.
And then just some more real quick shout outs to give a big shout out to Honyute Inc., who's been supportive of us throughout the season. Big shout out to our girl Kelly Tungovia. You see all of her beautiful graphic design work on all of our social medias. Big shout out to Deanna Machuca, who's been helping us with the episodes. Big shout out to KNEF and the Peace Academy Center for hooking us up with our home here at Peace Academy Studios. And another big shout out to L&K's Eatery, who's been keeping us fed.
Thank you, guys.
During our podcast sessions.
Yes, thank you guys for keeping us busy, for helping us out. I know you guys deserve more than what we're giving you, but we're very, very small time, so.
But I think that we could be big time.
Oh yeah, we're making it big. So.
We're recording this today. We're supposed to be on KTNN.
Oh yes, we are supposed to be on KTNN. So if you hear it,
let us know where to
next
find
week.
It.
I know this is going to come out way after KTNN.
So we're disrupting the time continuum and talking about that news. But big shout out also to folks that bought shirts from us, bought shirts from Carl and jman.bigcartel.com. Big shout out to you all rocking those So Think Some Cool t-shirts and those t-shirts out there. And also big shout out to all the folks that bought us coffee. We are definitely energized from all that coffee.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, I'll give you another shout. Got another clap there. Thank you, everybody, for 5 minutes worth of just thanking people.
I was going to say, goddamn, I feel like we already recorded the whole podcast episode.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to go now. That's the
And so, today's episode, we're going to wrap up season 4 with kind of, a darker themed episode. Today we're going to be talking about addiction. We're going to be talking about addiction, and we got a special guest in the studios today. We're going to welcome him on in about probably 10 minutes or so as we talk a little bit, kind of lay the framework for addiction. And so I guess when you think about addiction, that there's so many things you could be addicted to, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think that when you talk about it from a reservation context and you say the word addiction, that there's 2 types of addictions that pop up real quickly.
Okay.
There's drug addiction and alcohol addiction.
Oh, yeah.
But outside of that, there's so many other addictions, right?
Oh, yeah. There is a very, very wide range of addictions out here on the reservation.
Wide array of addictions. And I think one that's kind of getting a little bit more traffic in terms of people talking about it is gambling addiction.
Gambling addiction.
Especially because you got more of the tribes building casinos here in the state of Arizona. That's one. And then I think that another addiction too that people go through is addiction to medication. Medication pills.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's an addiction that we don't think a whole lot about, right?
No.
It's kind of like almost like a white man's addiction to be addicted to pills.
What's that? Xanax? You remember?
Xanax.
Yeah, white men are addicted to Xanax, and Hopis are addicted to
aspirin.
Aspirin.
Because that's all we can afford.
So I mean, for myself, I probably am addicted to like cameras. I mean, I keep buying cameras for some reason. Even though I still have like a nice camera, I'll buy another camera. Is that an addiction? Is that considered an addiction?
I think they call that a hobby.
Oh.
And so, with all these different types of addictions that are out there, but at least in terms of what we've seen on the reservation, and especially like what we've seen growing up, that a lot of those addictions really do relate to those top two that we talked about, alcohol and drug addiction. And so, I remember like kind of thinking back to when I was a kid, that as a kid growing up here on the reservation, that you saw alcoholism a lot, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was one of the pinnacle part of growing up as a res kid out here.
And we've talked about it a whole lot, too, about in our past episodes that there are these little hints in terms of what the alcoholism and what the alcohol abuse is like here on the reservation, because we talked about, as kids, that we used to go around collecting beer bottles or even T-Bird bottles. I remember one time as kids, with my friends from the day school, that we walked through the entire village, and we probably picked up at least 30 T-Bird bottles.
Really?
Yeah, 30 green T-Bird bottles.
That reminds me of a story. This one guy.
Can you please keep it under 20 minutes, please?
Shut up. So I remember this one guy, he flew his plane right over Hotvella village, and it sparkled this green glow. And he's like, man, that looks like Emerald City. So, and he went down to go look at it, and it was all these broken glass bottles that were everywhere, not all green glass bottles everywhere. So we're known as Emerald City at Hotvella.
But, like that, like we collected all these green T-Bird bottles as kids.
Yeah.
And then, we went to go and smash them. But that was always often something that you came across when you're walking around the villages with your friends.
Yeah.
And then I think that it wasn't until I got older, like into junior high, high school, is when I started noticing the drug addiction.
Exactly. I mean, like when we were growing up, we didn't, for myself, I saw that alcohol was like the main part of addiction for everybody. You saw your tajas, you saw your aunties, you saw other people doing it, you saw your friends doing it,
your parents for some people,
and
even and so
it became this normalized idea of like, this is how life is, and when you're growing up, it's like, yeah, I mean, alcohol is part of Hopi life, and you're saying that, okay, yeah, that's fine with me, and with that, it's just like it just becomes that normal. You just become normalized to that whole idea of not addiction anymore. It's not becoming addiction anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Because then you think about like being little kids, like even little kids.
Yeah.
The way that you would play sometimes, because I remember that when I was a little kid that I would take like some sort of soda, like a Sprite or something, and I pour it into a glass. But because of what I saw, how I saw people drink like whiskey or drink some of the more hard liquors, that you don't fill a glass full of liquor, that you pour a shot's worth into the glass. And I remember as a kid that I would take my soda and I would pour the exact same amount as the same amount of shots that I would see being poured into the glass from people that I used to see do that.
Oh, yeah.
And then act like I'm drinking the liquor.
Yeah, exactly. And so, with that in mind, it was weird to see your friends do it. It was weird to see your classmates do it. Even though it was normalized in that way, it just became like that normalization of like or that idea of like, okay, so this is what they do, but how do I address it in a way? And so you don't address it. You don't see that it needs to be addressed.
You don't address it, you just fall in line.
Yeah, you just fall in line and you just say that, okay, so I know that you drink, or I know that you smoke, or I know that you do drugs, but I don't know how to deal with these things.
I don't know how to fix you. I just know I guess might as well just join in and be a part of it. But like when I was talking about, when I think about like junior high school or high school outside of alcohol, that you really started to see the drugs.
Yeah.
And so what are some drugs that you can think of that you've seen being taken around here on the reservation?
Well, for one thing, I think the biggest one around here is meth. Meth is probably like one of the biggest drug addictions out here.
What's meth?
I have no idea.
How
I
do you
heard
take
it's like candy. Looks like candy, I believe. So
Do you chew it? Do you swallow it?
there's several houses that burned down. I'm pretty sure those were meth houses. So
Do you shoot it in your goodie?
that is strange because I never knew how you would take meth. It's weird because I watched Breaking Bad. Remember Breaking Bad, and they teach you about how to make meth and stuff like that, but they never show you how it's really
taken.
Yeah, how it's really taken. They just kind of show you little clips here and there until like you watch movies and you say that you have to grab a spoon and a candle and a dirty needle, and so
I think you're thinking of heroin.
oh well, I don't know how to do. I'm not a drug addict, so. I have no idea what how to do drugs.
When I think back on those teenage years, at least junior high school, that crystal meth, or at least in Tuba they called it G, which is short for glass. And then, but aside from G, weed was a big one.
Oh yeah, weed,
marijuana, Mary Jane.
Well, weed now is like the what did they say? The gateway
drug.
The gateway drug.
It's the gateway drug. But it's kind of interesting though, because I don't know if you had similar experience, but I remember being very young, like grade school young.
Yeah.
And my peers around me were smoking weed already.
Really?
And then so you hear what some of the terms that they would use to describe either the weed or the tools that they use to smoke weed. And so I used to, because I was so young and I was very pure, at least I think I like to think that I was pure in my grade school years. But then, hearing some of the terms that they would use to describe like that, we're going to go smoke weed. But then, as a farmer, you think about weeds, like the weeds that you hoe outside. And so that was something that I would think about, or they would think about, we're going to go smoke weed. My brother has a bowl. A bowl? How do you smoke weed out of a bowl? Because then I'm thinking like a cereal bowl.
Yeah.
And then they would say other things like, I know someone who has some. Let's go get a dime. A dime? How does money play into this aside from, I remember that was like some of my earliest memories is like trying to contextualize these terms. Bowl, something that I associated with breakfast, or, a dime, something that I associated with
money,
something you find inside the couch. And so, hearing these terms and trying to decipher what it is that my friends were talking about. And, that's kind of where I was introduced to drugs at a very, very young age.
Yeah, exactly. And, with both you and I, we grew up in the pinnacle part where drugs were like the all-time high, and 90s, 80s, 90s. I mean, it was still a drug city. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was no real, anything that would combat this whole thing. Mm-hmm. You had Dare. Remember that lion, Dare, the Dare lion?
I thought it was a bear.
It was a lion.
I thought it was a bear.
I think it was a lion.
I think it's a bear.
No, it was a lion.
This is why I'm the godfather of podcasting.
It was a lion.
And anybody out there that voted for Carl definitely was on drugs.
We were a Dare people. We're Dare. We're Dare. We had the pencils and the little red achievement pad, little things, the ribbons.
But then, I guess aside from the marijuana from the Mary Jane, that I think when I got into high school that we saw more of like cocaine.
Yeah.
I saw people take cocaine in high school, and then the G is something that kind of really came into play, especially in high school, because then I know that out here on Hopi that meth is bad.
Yeah.
But when we were growing up, going to school at Tuba City High School, that's when Tuba was like the capital of the world, at least on the reservation, for meth usage.
With all of this talk and all of this ideas, there was really nobody that we could turn to, or like somebody that could actually help us. Like there was no substance abuse programs, or there was nothing like that on the reservation.
I'm sure that there were, Carl. We just probably didn't know about them.
I know that there was the Dare Lion on there, so
I swear it's a bear, but.
All right. Well, it was interesting. So
I guess right now we'll take a quick commercial break.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break here, and we'll see you in a bit.
Strong Ones. Every Strong Ones design has a story and a unique meaning. They create designs to celebrate traditions of running and uplift Native cultures across the globe. They also partner with local artists on special projects in hopes to expose talent and creativity of Hopi people. Strong Ones are often referred to as Hohongvit in the Hopi language. They can be found at hohongvit.com. That's HOHONGVIT.com.
And we're back. And so I'd like to welcome to the podcast our very special guest, Mr. Joe Baca.
Good afternoon.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Mr. Baca.
Thank you for joining us, Joe. And so I guess if you could give your introduction to our listeners and kind of share a little bit about yourself, just let us know if you were one of the perpetrators leaving T-Bird bottles all over the village. I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to Carl and Jay, man. It's an honor to be out here and part of the podcast. I'm a loyal follower and listener, My name is Joe Baca. I am a healthcare social worker / counselor. I work for the Tuba City Regional Healthcare Corporation and our newly built community counseling center. So, other than that, I'm mixed, man. Carl might call me a mutt, but
a muggle. A muggle. I'll call you a muggle.
I'm Navajo, Hopi, Assiniboine, and Hispanic. And recently just found out we're also part Paiute. So
oh, really?
Weird.
Interesting. Don't ask how I got that mix. I had no part in that. But anyway, it's something I'm proud to say and proud to be a part of. But I was asked to come out here and the topic of addiction. It's a big topic, and it's something I'm passionate about sharing with those who want to hear it. I have a bit of a story, and I'll share that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, go ahead.
First and foremost, I'm a recovering addict, specifically meth. So some of the that was mentioned earlier, and meth is a highly potent stimulant.
Yeah.
It has adverse effects on you, where you're able to stay up days at a time. To some extent, upon first use, they say it's addictive. You're addicted after the first try, after the first use. And, I share a testament to that. Not a good one, but, I can relate to that because after my first use, I was hooked. I was addicted. I was hooked. That's how strong and potent it was. And, it started off, they mentioned gateway drugs, marijuana being a gateway drug. There's some argument about that, but that's what I started doing. I started smoking a little weed after high school. I felt like, I was going through some tough times. My parents had separated at the time. And for me, what I come to realize years after is this was a way for me to deal with this situation, to party. I felt like I had earned my freedom. I had gotten into school. I was going to college at the time, got my own apartment. And I felt like, I earned my place. If I want to party, I can party a little bit. I'll just be careful about it. But once I dabbled into the, the alcohol, the marijuana, it turned into, once or twice a month to every weekend. And then it started overflowing into the weekdays, Mondays, Sundays, that type of thing. And went from marijuana to the psychedelic stuff, LSD, mushrooms, and then into cocaine, which I got, pretty strung out on just as well, but then I was introduced to meth. And, that just, it blew me away. It made me feel like Superman. It made me feel like I could get a lot accomplished in a short amount of time, which I didn't get anything done. It just gave that sense of euphoria, that sense of, well, I'm on top of the world. I can do whatever I want now.
Yeah.
But in reality, I wasn't doing a darn thing. I lost my job. I lost my apartment. I ruined relationships with friends, family. And, I lost trust with a lot of people. I destroyed a lot of things in that process. And, I remember the big meth surge that happened in the early 2000s in Tuba.
Yeah.
And, it was a scary thing, but at that time I wasn't, I was a part of the problem. I thought, in order to support my habit, I tried to sell some to make some money. That didn't work out because I was a big user. And, within that time I went through, like I said, I lost everything. I was walking around the streets of Tempe, homeless.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, with just the clothes on my back, and that's how bad I got. And I didn't realize that until, again, after I'd gone through my recovery and whatnot. I thought, damn, at one point in time, I didn't have shit, man. I didn't have nothing. I was walking around the street, jumping around from apartment to apartment, hanging out with other addicts and whatnot. And there's a whole underworld out there. It's I share these conversations with my fiance, and she always kind of chuckles and said, your stories are scary. It's a dark world. It's unforgiving. It's dark. It's people you think are your friends will turn on you in a heartbeat. I've been in a few situations where I could have been stabbed. I could have been shot. I don't know how I got out of those. And I'm thankful to be alive today.
Oh yeah.
And it took a lot. The meth took me on a deep, dark journey that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. Not that I have enemies, but I just wouldn't wish that upon anybody. At my very worst, I was up for almost 14 days. I had napped off and on here and there, but imagine staying up one night, staying up 2 nights, maybe school or something like that. The next day you're tired, you're dragging, you got some brain fog, not COVID brain fog, but just brain fog. Your reactions are a little delayed. And, after a few days and nights of that, you start seeing things, you start hallucinating.
Wow, no kidding.
You feel like everybody's after you. And again, at my worst, after that, like I said, almost 14-day, I had been up partying and doing meth that whole time, and I was smoking it. I ended up in a little storage unit outside an apartment. Apartments have little storage units right next to them.
Yeah.
I was sitting in there because I felt like everybody was looking for me. It was a weekday. It was early in the morning, and I was sitting on my brother's balcony because I couldn't get inside because I was high, of course. And I'm sitting there looking. I'm looking across the street, and I'm like, "There's somebody behind that AC unit down there across the street. He's looking at me. Now there's 2 of them. Now they have binoculars. Now they've got radios. What the hell's going on?" So I went down into the parking garage, and I looked down, down the parking lot, and looked down one way, and I could swear I saw heads popping up, and they were getting closer. And I said, "Oh shoot, that's law enforcement." But I kept thinking and arguing with myself, why would law enforcement be looking for me? I don't have mass quantities. I don't sell. I'm not a big drug cartel dealer leader.
Yeah.
What I had, I already smoked it. I don't have nothing on me, and I didn't even have shoes on at the time. So, I ran across the apartment complex to another place, another guy that I knew, and he wasn't home. I noticed his little storage unit was open. I sat in there, and I went through this episode, and I'm sure it lasted a few hours where I felt like everything was closing in on me. This apartment complex was right next to the freeway. The traffic was getting loud. It was a weekday. I could hear helicopters. They were probably doing their morning traffic alerts or whatever they do. And, it's getting louder and louder. Everything is amplified because I'm under the influence of meth, and it's getting louder and louder. Now I hear footsteps, kind of faint. They're getting louder. I hear key chains jingling. I said, "Oh, crap, they're coming for me." So this whole time I'm thinking, when they come up here, and I felt like it's ATF, it's DEA, it's CIA, it's NHA. Everybody's looking for me.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for me. They're coming for me, but I couldn't figure out why. But so I'm thinking, they're coming. What am I going to do? They got to come up to the second story. They got to come up here. I'm in the little storage unit here, hiding, shaking, and shivering and scared. And when they get up here, I can either just surrender myself or I can run. I thought, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to run. Let's see if they got to be cops. Now I hear dogs. It's probably cops and canine units. They usually come in pairs. There's usually a dog with them. What I can do is I can run right in between them. The dog will get tangled up in their legs, and they'll both fall, and I'll get away, no problem. Then I thought, no, then they'll charge me for hurting a police officer. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can jump off the balcony, man. I know I can do. I can jump, tuck, and roll, and I'm out of here, man. You're not. I used to watch, on the movie Friday where. One of the crackheads? You ain't never catching a crackhead. I just figured you ain't catching a meth addict, man. I'm fast, man. The blink of an eye, I'm gone, man. I'm barefooted too. Shoot,
that makes me even faster.
Exactly. So I just kept arguing. Okay, I'm gonna run. No, I'm gonna pretend to give myself up. Maybe they won't cuff me. We'll walk down to the bottom, then I'll bolt. No, I'll jump and run. Tuck, wait, there's bushes down there. So I'm arguing. I don't know how long this is going on. I'm like, I'm gonna get away. The helicopters are getting closer. Traffic's getting louder, and I'm like, damn. Okay, here they come. Now I can hear the footsteps are louder. They're coming up the steps. I hear what I thought is gun belts jingling.
Yeah, yeah.
And, they come and they knock on the door. I'm like, oh, shit. Okay, be quiet. And they knock again. And I'm like, all right. I slowly start to stand up, take a deep breath. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to give myself up. all that frustration and talk and all that tough guy, went out the door. Oh, I'll just give myself up, man. So I'm sitting there waiting for them to open the door. It never happens. the traffic slows down, helicopters are gone. All I hear is, it's a beautiful day out, just birds chirping. I look outside and I see, what looks like a maintenance guy. He's walking away. His keys are kind of jingling behind him. And I was like, what the heck was that all about? I look at the door and there's a notice on the door. It says, to all tenants in this complex, we're turning off the water at 1 p.m. It's going to be shut off for half an hour. We're just letting you know. I had just a crazy. I was dripping in sweat. I was sitting in a puddle of sweat. I was shaking. I was so tired. And after that, I went down. I found some bushes with a little bit of shade. I went and took a nap because I was so tired. It burned me out. And after I woke up from that nap, sleeping behind some bushes, I got up and I thought I had I called these moments of clarity where I thought, what the hell am I doing? What are you doing to yourself? A few things are going to happen here. You're either going to die out here on the street, somebody's going to kill you, or you're going to turn this around. You're going to do something about it. And within that time frame, I had my oldest son was born, towards the end of my addiction, and that gave me some motivation. Seeing my family and seeing the disappointment in my mom's eyes, seeing the disappointment in my youngest brother's eyes. One day I came and I ran into my mom and I was high. I asked her for some money and she said, I won't give you no money. I'll buy you something to eat. And I said, no, I'm okay. And I got all pissed off, of course. And, I just walked off and my brother came running over and, looked like he was crying or he was about to cry. And he handed me some money and he said, here's some money, get something to eat or whatever you needed it for. And, that really hurt me to see it that way, to see my brother like that. And what kind of, I'm the oldest of three brothers. And
yeah,
I felt like, man, what the hell am I doing? Look at that. My brother looks up to me and I'd hate to see him end up in a situation like this. And, to see my mom, there was a situation after I went home. I finally went home, saw my son, and I thought I needed to make a change. I went home and rested, reluctantly and I'm sure hesitantly. My mom let me back in the house and I slept. And every time I tell the story, I'm reminded, I slept for what I thought was just a weekend. But my mom always reminds me, no, you were asleep for about a week. All you got up to eat, to use the bathroom, to shower, and you were asleep. So, I really needed a lot of rest. And once I finally woke up from that, I took a walk around Tuba and I went to see an old employer of mine who's like another mom to me too. And I went to see her and I walked in the office. She closed the door behind me and I said hi and she walked over, turned the open sign around to close. And I was like, what's going on? I started getting paranoid because this is a mortuary too.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, are they going to put me in a casket right now? And she said, it's really good to see you, Joe. She goes, I'm going to be real honest with you. You look like shit. I was like, wow. And my first reaction was to be upset. And I thought, I'm just going to let her talk. I'm still in that addictive mindset,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm sitting there. So she said, you know what, her nephew, which is a good friend of mine, she said, he's worried about you. He won't even answer my calls now. He's afraid to answer because he thinks that every time I calling from the mortuary, that I'm calling to tell him, hey, we found Joe. We're going to put him away. I need you to come up here, kind of thing. He's gone. We found him dead. And I was like, wow. And she goes, that's how bad I think you've gotten. And she said, what's going on? I said, I've gotten into for the first time, I said, I gotten into some stuff and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get help. I don't know who to turn to. And I said, I'm making my way to my mom. She said, have you talked to her yet? And I said, no. So you're the first person I've told this. And she said, well, I'll take you to your mom. So you can tell her. And then we can go from there. So I said, all right. And it just it hit me really hard knowing that, have I gotten this bad that, they're thinking that I may die soon, that they may be preparing for my funeral service. And I was like, wow, that was just so, it was a feeling that it just woke me up in a sense. It also made me feel like crap at the same time because I thought, damn, what the hell am I doing to myself? Took me over to my mom's and I brought my mom out and I told her the same thing. And, before I could tell her I wanted help, I needed help, she was saying, you know what, son, I prayed for this moment. I've been praying for this day to happen. I've sat up countless nights waiting for PD or the ambulance or somebody to come over and tell me. I've seen PD and the ambulances go through our neighborhood several nights, and I hoped and prayed that they were coming to my house to tell me one of two things. Either one, that they found you dead somewhere, or that you're in jail. And she goes, and I say that because if they found you dead somewhere, I would know you weren't suffering no more. And, to hear that from your own mother, man, it tore me up in a lot of different ways, but it also opened my eyes. And, to hear that from my mom, I got a little upset, but I didn't say anything. And then she said, and if they said you were in jail, at least I would know you had a roof over your head and you were getting fed. And I was like, wow. And she said, and I don't say that because I want to wish you did, but she goes, I know how bad you were getting. And that would have given me some comfort knowing where you were and that you were okay. And I told her I needed help. I don't know where to start. So she said, well, mental health is right here. I'm going to call somebody and we'll take you over there.
Wow.
And,
that's a real powerful story, Joe.
Thank you. And she's, I went to mental health. I got to the doorway and then she said, well, you're going to talk to somebody and they're going to send you across the street to behavioral health. And I said, okay. So we walked over, we got to the doorstep. I took one step in and I looked back and I was like, where's my mom? And a friend of mine, you guys are supposed to come with me. Aren't you coming with me? And they said, no. They said, nope. If you want to do this, if you're really serious about doing this, then you got to do it on your own. We'll be here to support you, but we can't hold your hand through this process. You have to do it on your own. You said you were going to quit a few other times and you never did. So this has to come from you and you only. So I went through behavioral health in Tuba City for 4 months, outpatient. I went, I made all my appointments. I had finally made a choice. I wanted to see my son. I wanted to be a father to my son. I wanted to be a son to my mother. I wanted to be a brother to my brothers. And I needed a way out or I was going to die. So I went through behavioral health in Tuba, like I said, for 4 months outpatient. Then with the suggestions of my friends and family, I went to an inpatient facility in Long Beach, California called Changing Spirits for men.
Yeah.
And I went out there for 6 months. 6 months, and I really learned a lot about myself. I was able to finally learn who I was, what I was a part of, and why, I had chosen to do the things that I did, and what took me down that path, and what brought me back, and part of it was, it's funny because one of the episodes you guys talked about being half Navajo, half Hopi, and being part was something I dealt with. And I don't remember it having a detrimental effect on me, but I just remember times where I was told, hey, you're not Hopi enough, going out with the Navajos. All right, well, you're not Navajo enough, go back to the Hopis. Oh, you're from the city, go with the city Indians over here on this side. And going out with the nerds, I'm like, I don't know where I belong.
Yeah, that's crazy, Joe, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
We greatly appreciate you sharing your story. Carl, I got some tissues right here. Seeing that your eyes are getting a little bit soggy there. But that's a very, very touching story. And I think that, one of the things that I did want to say at the beginning, because, for the most part, most of our listeners are understanding of how our podcast is, and we are kind of more on the lighthearted side, but definitely a difficult subject, difficult topic for a lot of people out there. Because then, when you talk about addiction, Joe, you shared your story, and addiction has definitely affected my family. I know that it's affected your family, Carl, that there's probably not a single family out here that addiction hasn't touched. And so, I think that a lot of people probably can relate to, part of your story, Joe. And, it's really interesting, to the fact that you're sharing I guess what that mental state is that you're in when you're addicted to something, especially like meth, because now I know that, for some of the people that I know who've been strung out on some things, now I know that they were probably strung out on G for how that they acted. But, I think, carrying the conversation forward, that, because I think between the three of us that we could probably share a whole lot about addiction and from our own personal stories. And, Carl, trying to compare his addiction to cameras.
It's a powerful addiction, goddammit. This is a powerful drug, goddammit. It's taking over my life. One thing that occurred to me when you were telling your story is that, how did you find drugs? Like, how do you do that? How do you do that? I know it's not, kids that are listening, this is nothing that you should be doing, but it's weird. But it's weird because how do you go about, you go to somebody and say, hey, I'm looking for drugs. Do you just go up to somebody and say that? Or how does it all start? Do they just say that, hey, I'm selling? Do they open up their trench coat and say, I got a bag of weed here and some meth on this side here.
I got that good.
I got the good here. It's so weird because you never hear how do you find it?
Well, it's you guys had mentioned earlier you were aware that the marijuana it's everywhere. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's it's not hard to come by. It's cheap to make, so to speak. I mean, the same with the meth. I mean, with the super labs that are being built and things like that, it's very accessible. It's very cheap. I mean, $20 at the time I was doing it, $20 was enough to get 3 or 4 people high and keep them up for 2 or 3 days.
Dang, really?
That's how powerful that stuff was. And I think it's, when you're in the party, I mean, during college, my college days, in the party scene, there was a few people in the back or sitting outside smoking a little weed. And if you wanted to either partake or, you kind of gradually slid into that little group and said, hey, man, what you guys smoke? Let me have a hit, or that kind of thing. And most of the time they were more than willing to share with you because, hey, the more the merrier kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And there it just turned, into, you could carry on a simple conversation like this. I could say, hey, Carl, what you doing? We could talk about partying days and then slide right into, well, hey, you smoked a little at one time where you drank a little, man, you ought to try some weed. This is a lot better than, we start comparing the drugs and trying to entice people to do them with you because what do they say? Misery loves company kind of thing. And it's weird because it people are fascinated by it. They're scared of it at the same time, but there's an interest there because I think once you're addicted or once you're high, there's a sense of freedom there. Mm-hmm. There's a sense of euphoria that, again, like I said, it makes you feel like you're on top of the world. It
makes you feel like a superhero.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
a degree.
It really does, and that's the scary part because that. After that first intense high too, you can never get that again. It's called chasing the dragon.
Yeah, I heard that before.
And then you're constantly chasing that first high, and you never get it.
And not from my own experiences, because I like to think of myself as a good boy, just
a peer boy.
Like Carl.
I'm a peer boy.
But from the experiences of somebody I know, let's call him K-Man. and so, I think from K-Man's experiences, it's that you learn how to obtain these drugs through people that are closest to you, cousins, siblings. They know people that know where to get it, either that or they're slinging themselves. And then I think that the more that you explore outside of your network, especially when you're young, like in those junior high school days, that you really do learn who the dealers are. Yeah. And then you learn the lingos because Carl, you don't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, I want to smoke some drugs. what kind of stash do you got? You really do learn that lingo, especially like that, like the quantities of what something is, a dime or a 20 or a QP or all the way up to a pound. And so there's all these different terminologies and it changes between whether you're talking about marijuana, cocaine, or crystal meth G, and so it's like this street education, I guess, that you obtain. And then I think that, especially like in those younger years, once you're labeled as a user, because like Joe said, somebody sees you getting high or somebody sees you smoking G or snorting cocaine or drinking alcohol, that they know that you're in a way, quote unquote, cool. And so then you start getting invited to the parties. Then you start getting invited to indulge because like Joe said, misery loves company. And so the people that are getting blazed, they want somebody to get blazed with. And they're like, oh, K-Man gets high, so let's go invite K-Man to get blazed with us, or maybe K-Man has some weed on him, and so let's go invite him and see what he has. And then it's interesting because in a way that a culture is developed from people that do drugs. And
see, I'm just waiting for like a camera party. Like a camera addiction party, camera users. Hey, you shot some good 35 millimeter film. Come and sample some of the 120 film. I'm still waiting for that party to happen. Carl loves this. Let's invite him to those parties. I want to be invited to those parties.
Carl's got the best images.
Carl has some good shots of.
You'll never get as high until you take his first image from his camera.
But all in all, we joke around that addiction, and yes, because I'm a shut-in. I never knew that could exist like that. Mm-hmm. Of course, I knew that my family members, not my internal family members, but my external family members,
extended family members.
Yeah, that does that, but I never knew that they did it.
Yeah,
like to a way. I knew that they did it, but I never knew that they did it to the extent of what they're doing it as.
And so, Joe, if I can ask you this question, being a recovered addict yourself, what goes through your mind when you see other people doing drugs, like in the community, or if you know of folks that are doing drugs, or if you see somebody that has a high, what type of thoughts run to your head when you see something like that?
You know, I wonder, and I know that they're going through something. They're having a hard time dealing with something, coping with something, and this was their way. And then I also think there's, you know, I try to make it a point to interact within my own safety means, of course, and at least let them know, hey, you ever need to talk, you need someone to meet with or to speak with that's non-judgmental, non-biased, because, you know, what I've also found out is family. Our own families can be the most judgmental and the most biased people when it comes to things like that, because they care, but their way of showing that care is, you know, it tends to look like anger, disappointment, and things like that. And that's all there, and we need to be told those things. But at the same time, you know, in order to deal with somebody who's struggling with addiction, I found it, you know, I used to work for Hopi Behavioral Health Services for about 2.5 years. And, you know, I became the unofficial meth expert because I could relate to all the meth users. You know, there was a time, Joe, can you talk to so-and-so? I think he's on meth. I need to find out if he is, and how do you talk to him? And I'm in there talking to him, and the guy leaves and he comes back and they said, Joe, they're asking for you now. This meth user's asking for you.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, that's fine. Bring him in. And it, you know, it helped because I could speak their language. I knew the lingo. I could relate with them, you know, and as addicts, you know, we constantly, we hear people who really want to help, and we can see it. We can feel it. Mm-hmm. Then you have those who want to use their education, their status, their PhDs or whatnot, and try to bullshit you and say, you know, they're not really trying to help you. They're just, you know, showing face, so to speak. And, you know, we went to a meeting one time when I was in rehab, and there was about 5 of us sitting there, and we thought, this guy that came up, PhD, we thought, this guy's full of shit. He don't know the first thing, and he's just talking out his books and whatnot. He has no idea. You know, there was no compassion. There was no empathy. There was just, he was just, in a sense, putting us down.
According to Harvard study.
So, it you know, we see that and we sense that, but I think to be personable and compassionate towards others, just offering a hand within reason, of course, because we have to empower them. We don't want to enable them. And a lot of people don't know that. So that's something I tried to do and did for a short time, going to all the villages and educating them. This is enabling. This isn't. If you're going to allow your family member, you know, and I had a good conversation with the member out here who said, you know what, I've got my son. I'd rather have him in the house doing meth in my house rather than doing out there with who knows who. And I thought, you know what, that's just a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time before he hurts you. And in some serious cases, before he hurts you, before he sexually molests or does something serious like that to one of the kids. You know, we see a lot of that. It's sad and it's heartbreaking and it's scary because, you know, family members who are under the influence are hurting their own family members. They're killing grandparents. They're killing their own brothers and sisters. They're raping, molesting, and things like that to their own daughters, their own nieces, and things like that. And that's the really dark side of it. And we don't hear a lot about that, or we hear it and we kind of, no, that can't happen to me, or that's not happening here. But it you know, the fact of the matter is it goes on, and that's how bad people get. So offering, you know, help to people and at least telling them, I'm here for you. There's a way out. I'm living proof there's a way out. When you're ready to talk, come on over.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
Joe, you kind of got me feeling bad about cracking jokes on this episode. As I say that, let me say this joke. Do you know how you say addict in reservation lingo?
No, I don't. I haven't heard that one.
It's head.
Head.
It's head. Anytime you're addicted to anything, it's always you're a pothead, you're a G-head, or
that's
you're
right,
a cokehead.
Yeah, I should have known that. I've heard all of this.
You're native. God, man.
So when you're working at behavioral center, Joe, they're probably saying, oh, let's go get Joe. He's the G-head around here. Let's go get him to help you out.
He's the godfather of G-head. Let's go get him.
He's the godfather of G-heads over there.
But I guess, you know, in terms of the way that we're talking about this, you know, kind of talking about at least what we've seen in terms of addiction and how it makes our people react, that out here on the reservation that it almost kind of, because I guess you see so many people that are addicted to either alcohol or drugs, some type of drug, that in a way it creates this stereotype of how our people act in terms of depending on what they're influenced by. And it's funny because then I think that, there's a joke behind, especially alcohol, that around Hopis, it's always, you only want to speak Hopi when you're drunk.
Yeah.
Or you only want to speak Hopi when you're under the influence. And it's funny because, I had a buddy and, he would drink a lot. He would drink often. And then every time he would get that good buzz going, then he'd always start talking Hopi and he would always, say this line. He would always say this line. I can't exactly remember what that line was. But one time I was scrolling through YouTube and just, Google searching Hopi, seeing all the Hopi videos that are out there about our people, that this one video popped up and this line that my buddy was always reciting was from this YouTube video. And so he would speak Hopi from this YouTube video that he must, obviously that's where he learned the line from, but it always come out every time he's all buzzed out.
Yeah, that falls in that addictive behavior, and you'll see some of that stuff come up as people are presenting themselves or the way they act, the things they do. It was, I had a lot of amends to do. Stealing from my best friend, my mom, taking things from my mom and selling them to support my own habit. It was part of the healing process, part of my recovery, and I made amends with as many people as I could. There's still people today, a few that didn't accept my apology and said, I want nothing to do with you. And that's fine. That's okay. That's okay. I burned those bridges and I'm responsible for that. And I own up to my own actions and responsibilities. And I hope that someday they can see differently, but I'm not going to lose sleep over that either. At the same time, I got to keep moving forward and hopefully inspire and empower others and show them, like I said before, there's a way out. You'll see me, when I post things on Facebook, I always tell people at the end of some of my sentences, I say, stay in the fight. We're not going to win all the battles. There's going to be days where, we can all relate to. Just a part of life, paying bills. I can't pay that bill right now. Sometimes it's little things like that can throw addicts back into, F it, man. I'm just gonna get high and smoke a bowl. I'll feel better, kind of thing.
So with all of the information that is all thrown out there, is there like a difference between a white man being high and a native being high? Is there like a difference between that?
The white man's probably getting high at the country club. And then the Hopi guy is probably getting high behind the tumtsoki or in a lot of villages at the Katsinki.
The reason why I say that is because, we always talk about, like, we always see our own people getting high and stuff like that. And we never see, like, Bahanas getting high or high on the streets. Of course, we kind of see them every now and then, but we kind of just brush it off.
Yeah.
So we already know what Hopis look like when they're high. So that was my question. I know it's like a weird question.
Actually, Carl, I think that's a good point because then, I think that unfortunately, especially like in mainstream society, right? Like I guess they display certain populations doing something in a certain way. And so like for Bahanas, white people, if they're getting high or if they're drinking, it's always at a party.
Yeah.
Or it's always a good time. Like it's some sort of celebration.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to brown people, especially native people, all the times that we're getting high or drunk, it's like in these real
shacks
and passed out on the ground somewhere. Yeah. And it's kind of, it creates this really negative narrative about brown folks, especially native people, that when we're always being displayed in a certain type of way when it relates to alcohol and drugs. And, I'd hate to say that, I'm sure that, there's natives out there that are drinking and doing drugs in a cool way, in a way to where they're celebrating life and celebrating their successes, But I really do think it is something like that. This is such a broad topic, and there's so much to discuss because I guess Carl kind of talked about it a little bit that he hasn't had a whole lot of experiences with addiction, but I've dabbled a little bit in different things, and I think that and that's why I really thank you, Joe, for sharing your story because I'm sure that it takes a lot of guts and a lot of effort to share something so personal.
Oh yeah,
about
yeah.
yourself,
That is very
to kind of show your weak side, and it is scary because I was kind of sitting there listening to your story. I was like, oh man, should I share my thoughts and share my experiences and kind of getting a little nervous. But I can attest that when you are under the influence of some of this stuff, that it does it in a way it takes the edge off life, because we all know how hard life can be out there, and then like that you do it so that you can be sociable with others sometimes to
exactly.
whether you're, meeting somebody for a drink or, going to a party because, all your friends are there, and then indulging in whatever's available there. And so I've seen, the bad side of addiction. I've experienced a little bit of it to a degree, not quite to where you've experienced it, Joe, but I've seen others, people that I cared about, people that, I love, go through something like that. And in some cases it ended good. It ended up in the same situation that you did, they recovered, but I've seen it end in the worst possible way that it could end. And so, I think that a lot of us out here experience that or see that. And so I guess, speaking on a more positive, to end the podcast on a more positive note, and this is, all three of us can talk about this, are what are some of the, and Joe, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but what are some of the ways that addiction can be helped, especially out here on the reservation?
I think, some of the ways that, we I mentioned earlier, we in Tuba, over at the Tuba City Regional Healthcare Corporation, we've built a brand new community counseling center. We started services, and part of the vision was to begin offering, services in those exact areas: substance abuse, suicide, just people having a hard time, and that was part of the dream and the vision to get help to those who needed it, to give hope to those who didn't have any hope, and to show them how to go about getting through their addiction. You have Navajo Nation Behavioral Health across the street just as well, and there's some other services that are coming about. But we've taken another step where we're going to try to, myself providing education, life skills education, to help avoid those situations, to help deal with possible addiction early on, communication, relationship building, things like that. Those are the things that I think we need to continue to work on. When we have good communication with our family, with our children, makes it a little easier to come to you with a problem, what this is going on, without judging them or without knocking them down, kind of thing, So.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Joe. What about you, Carl? What are some thoughts, solutions to help people like yourself with that real bad camera addiction?
Make sure you talk to Soul first before purchasing another item like that, because Soul is getting the bill.
Make sure Soul handles your finances.
Soul handles the finances. No, what was I going to say? I was you lost me
before you rudely interrupted.
Before I was really interrupted with my addiction.
You're like, I'm holding the truth stick.
My turn.
I'm holding the conch, okay? The sacred conch. I think what Joe was saying, to pertaining to like getting help, getting people like that, and it's weird, because I wanted to ask you if you had a choice, if you had that choice, and if it was possible to go back in time, would you do something different back then, or would you keep that same path because it led you up to something that was great?
I've thought about that on occasion, and a part of me would have wanted to say, I would have said no, I wouldn't have done drugs at all. But the rest of me, the other 70% of me is I've accepted the fact of where I'm at, and I think everything that led up to that has brought me here. I often tell people, the choices that you make dictate the path that you go on.
Oh yeah,
they don't determine who you are, but they do dictate the path. You want to go on that deep dark path that you may not return from, then these are a reflection of your choices, but they don't necessarily define who you are. You've got a lot of life ahead of you. There's a lot of things you can still do and become. It's just we have to get through those tough times, and some of us don't cope very well with certain things. After I got through my recovery, I came out, I felt like a new man, but some of the legal issues that I had, they were still there. some of the, destruction I caused, it was still there. I had to deal with it as soon as I got out. But the difference was I had a tool belt now. I've got coping skills. I've got ways, anger management, stress reduction, all those things that I can use now. I got to pay this damn fine driving on a suspended license. And I could just say, the hell with it and then go on and smoke a bowl and be done with it. But you know what? Hey, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to take it one step at a time. I used to think that was the cheesiest line, one step at a time, one day at a time. I'm like, that's so stupid. But I live by that now. But I've taken it a step further, one moment at a time. And I applied that to everything else I do, one workout at a time, one meal at a time, and narrowed it down that much because then it becomes manageable. I don't overwhelm myself and fall into, stress-ridden day type of thing. And, it broadens your horizons to everything else you're capable of doing. And you start finding things, it took me 30 years to actually accept who I was and what I was a part of. I'm proud that I'm mixed up, that I'm a Navajo, Hopi, Assiniboine, Mexican, and Paiute, and things like that. I've just learned. I'm proud of that. And took me 30 years to come to that realization and get through my addiction. Actually, at the end of this month, the last weekend of April, I'll be 16 years clean and sober. So
awesome.
This is actually good timing. So
well, thank you. 16 years is something to celebrate. I mean, even 1 year is something to celebrate for something like that.
One day for some people.
Oh yeah, one day.
And so
I see people like that, on social media, and I connect with them and just drop some encouraging, supportful words. And if they want anything else, I always give them information. This is where you can come. This is where you can call. And again, with our new services, we have a lot to offer them. And of course, like anything else that's new, it's going to start slow. Right now, it's just educational, life skills education. So, but I can teeter in the substance abuse and in some of those areas because that's where my experience is. But eventually, we're going to be offering behavioral health services, mental health services. It's going to grow, and it's going to grow into a big, beautiful thing that is much needed in this area.
All right. Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for your stories. Thank you for all the information of where you could get all of that. And, we'll go ahead and link all of the information of where you could get help for suicide prevention, for drug addiction in our YouTube videos and everything like that.
Appreciate that.
And it's time for us to get on out of here. So, I have my addiction to take care of. I know that.
I've already got you scheduled in, Carl.
So if anybody out there has any dry eyes left after this episode, we'd like to thank you all for listening, and definitely like to can't wait for season 5 to start.
Oh yeah, exactly. So look out for that on our YouTube. We will be giving you sort of like little updates on here what's going on, and we'll be doing a lot of more YouTube in the near future here.
We're going to be doing more YouTube content, doing more cooking with J-Man, some more Us Be These guys, and be on the lookout for maybe a couple bonus episodes. To keep you
exactly
tucked and tidy and get your addiction for Carl and J-Man appeased until we go into next season.
All right. So, if you guys want to donate to Carl and J-Man, go to anchor.fm/CJ Podcast 85 to listen to our episodes and to become our 30-pack contributors. Or if you want to donate $1, go to buymeacoffee.com/CJ Podcast to donate $1 or more.
Definitely. And if you're not following us on social media, you can find us at Carl and J-Man all across the boards on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscription button, so that way we can get a couple of steps closer to getting that beautiful plaque once we reach 100,000 subscribers. And so I guess until next time, that's pretty much it from us.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. My name is Carl, and this is my best friend, J-Man.
So long, quoi.